Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Rachel's Kitchen, Debbie Roxarzade. Debbie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for being on the show. I want to hear all about Rachel's Kitchen. I know the number one question you get is, why is your name Debbie and why is the name of your company Rachel?
Well, Rachel is my daughter, so I named the company after her almost 18 years ago. We're celebrating our 18th anniversary, September 1st, so in about 2 weeks. So it's named after her. She was a baby. She was 2 years old when I started the concept, and I was pregnant with my son. And well, I wasn't pregnant with him when I started planning the concept.
Sure.
I was pregnant with him as we opened, so that's why I was named after her.
Oh, well,
Long-winded answer, but that's what it is.
And you get the question all the time. Really right out of the chute here, you've got all these beautiful awards. I know the awards go up all the way up towards the ceiling. You showed me earlier. Super impressive that Rachel's Kitchen has been a best of Las Vegas. Not to mention, you have a ton of competition in Las Vegas. I don't care how many categories they're awarding. That is super impressive. But let's start out and tell me, how did you even get started in this business?
It's been a while. I started in LA with a small little coffee shop and gift shop, and I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, loved entertaining, loved having people like in my home and catering to them and things like that. So I started with this, coffee shop and gift shop, and I thought this gift shop's just going to do like fantastic, and people are going to come and they're going to have coffee and they're going to buy all these like wonderful things. And I quickly learned that even if they do that, there's no way to make any money with that. How am I going to sell, a greeting card and a cup of coffee and scale anything or do anything? So I started having like some desserts, and then I added some sandwiches into the thing, and slowly but surely the sandwiches took off and the greeting cards did not. And, changed it from a coffee and gift shop to more of a cafe, and created more salads, and just slowly started to like expand the menu with the space that I had and the limitations, and took that and opened up another one, which focused more on some food, and then continued to scale that way in Los Angeles when I was there. And I had multiple locations in LA. And then for a while I started building them and designing them and, putting the menus together and everything, and then kind of selling them off. And when my husband and I decided that we did not want to raise Rachel, our daughter, when I was actually pregnant with her in LA, we started kind of branching out and looking at, where do we want to be that's still close to home, but not in LA. And I know Vegas is a very, very strange place to pick because most people think of Vegas and they're like, okay, now you raised your daughter in a casino. But we are in the suburbs.
Right.
And when we moved here, almost 18 years ago, it was just a great place for like young families and young professionals. And
Sure.
Just especially coming from LA with how busy it was and how hectic it was just really nice to just be able to like have, a space and have a yard and be able to like walk her in a stroller, and people were just nice. And, it was sort of like a melting pot of people that were just moving here to kind of get away from, the hecticness of Southern California. So we really liked it. We fell in love here, and it took us a while to do a full move, but we finally did that after I sold off the locations that I had. My husband transitioned from his business, and we started out here, and we're here.
So you opened this little quaint cafe in Las Vegas in 2006?
Yes. So I took, kind of the tried and true recipes from the different creations that I had in LA and brought them together and created Rachel's Kitchen. And fortunately for me, I had some team members that had been with me for years in LA, and they moved out here with me
Wow.
to Vegas. So that, of course, made things a lot easier for me. And, not an entire team, but I had like a good group of people, and two of which are still with me today. So I'm couldn't be any more fortunate when it comes to that.
That is
Um,
amazing.
and they've just helped me, grown and scaled, and obviously they're family to me, but it's been amazing in that regard. So started with a small Rachel's Kitchen. It was 1,000 square feet in a suburb of Vegas called Summerlin, close to where I lived, and it just started to do really well. I mean, we had some mixed reviews because some people at the time, we have fresh juices and, goat cheese on the menu and stuff. And, 18 years ago in Vegas, people were more used to McDonald's or American cheese or,
Hmm.
a salad from grocery store or whatever. So some people would walk in and say, what is this? Why are you putting goat cheese on the salad? And why are you juicing vegetables? I mean, this is terrible. You're never going to make it. You should just close up now. And other people would come in and say, my gosh, this is wonderful. We don't have this here. All we have is like fast food chains. And, the closest thing was like Whole Foods Market had opened a couple of years back, and, they had fresh juices and whatnot. So started to kind of just get our own crowd of people, and that slowly grew and grew and grew. And we outgrew our 1,000 square foot location pretty quickly. And I had, multiple developers. Vegas was growing so much in 2005, 2006.
Oh yeah, it was
We're
exploding
just
then.
it was exploding, and people were just building and building, and new neighborhoods, were just popping up every 3 months. It was like something new had created. And these developers were like, I'd love you to open, a Rachel's in here. I'd love you to open a Rachel's in here. And I was like, oh gosh, I can't wait to do all of this stuff. But I was pregnant with my son. I had a 2-year-old, and I had a new business in a new city. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I got to do this. I got to do this. And, people talking to me about franchising. And I thought, oh, what is this? I don't know what this, really is about. Obviously, I knew what franchising was, but I was like, how can I actually make this happen?
Right.
And started to learn a little bit about franchising, went to a franchise convention, met some people, some consultants and things. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is the way I'm going to grow this brand. I have some of my own, my own thing, keep my core, and I'm going to grow with franchising, and I'm going to do it in Las Vegas. And, this is wonderful. This valley is growing. And it took me a while to learn, and get the documents and the FDD and everything together, because it's a whole different business. And,
Sure.
so I went for it, and, it was great. And 2008, I sat there with all my pretty documents, and I was like, hey guys, I'm ready. And everyone's like, well, that's great for you, because that location we wanted you to open up in, yeah, we scrapped that location. We scrapped
Right.
this location. And we scrapped that location. And, forget about anybody getting any financing from the bank. So
Sure.
go find some, people that have really deep pockets that want to open up a restaurant in 2008. I was like, yeah, I did a very good job on this one time.
Yeah.
So
No, as a fellow founder, I remember the 2008, 2009 time period very, very well. And it was very tough for us, as most of us in franchising, to sell franchises. In our business, in my business, it was very easy. Our franchisees did very, very well, and they got through it from a standpoint of getting customers. But selling franchise in '08, oh my gosh, I started selling franchises in 2003. That's when I really started. So I had like a 5-year lead. But for you to start franchising in '08, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to you, because you probably also were thinking like, is this how it's going to be?
well, it was just, I mean, it was so new to me, but then it was just, scary, because everybody was like, oh, you're never, this is never going to happen. You
Right.
have a restaurant, you have a new concept, and you're in Las Vegas of all places. I mean, I don't think there were many other areas that you could be in that had been hit quite as hard as
Absolutely
Vegas.
right. It was probably hit one of the hardest.
Oh yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I picked a really good strategy for growth.
Well,
You know,
let's not get too far down with the story away from the lesson here, because I do have a lot of emerging founders that are listening or watching the podcast, and we are someday, I don't know when it's going to be, but we are going to have an economic downturn. What would be a piece of advice that you would give these founders in preparation for running a business that enters a recession? How do they get through it?
I think you just have to hold on to your core, and you just have to be the best that you can be. I
Hmm.
mean, there's, the book Good to Great. It's really just about that, just keep believing. I mean, obviously don't overdo anything, don't overspend, but just keep believing in your product and whatever it is that you want to do. It will happen. It's hard work. it may not go according to plan. It may, take several additional years or whatever it may
Sure.
be, but, have faith and stick with it, I would say, and just work hard. I mean, it's not always going to be, and I've had ups and downs even after, the recession, and, still go through the ups and downs and whatnot, but
That's
just
business, right?
keep
There's
doing
ups
it.
and
Yeah.
downs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing is forever. A great economy is not forever, nor is a bad economy. Nothing is ever,
exactly.
right? Everything's in cycles. And I think that's a great lesson for folks, that no matter what economy they're in. In fact, there's been data that show that some of the greatest companies of our time were started during a recession. And one of the advantages for you and for other companies that start during a downtime is that it does keep competition out, because most people are afraid to start a new business. So that
Yes.
you actually get this gap, you get this window of opportunity, this time where you get to grow and build a business when nobody else is doing it. And there's something to be said about that.
Definitely. I agree with that. I agree with that.
So you go ahead on this franchise journey, you start out 08. How long does it take before the first Rachel's Kitchen franchise opens?
2010, the first one opened. So it was still a terrible economy, but, kind of back to what you were saying, there wasn't a lot of competition for people wanting to open businesses, and there were a lot of second generation restaurants available. That portion of it, people could get into a business for much less than they could, during better times.
Sure.
So we were fortunate enough to find a location that was an existing restaurant in a area of Henderson that had been hit really, really hard, but we felt like within a couple of years, this outdoor center was going to be turned around. It had just gone through like a bankruptcy, and a new owner had taken it over. So there's a lot of positive going into it. But it was scary, and the franchisee was, great at the time. And we were like, okay, we're going to go for this, and we're going to hope and pray and do everything we possibly can to, get it going. And it was a little bit bigger than my existing location, but it still wasn't that big. So it was, kind of a calculated risk. And thankfully, the new owner of the center did, breathe some new life into the center, cleaned it up, started bringing in like re-tenanting and bringing in good, partners for us that we could scale with, and kind of, do more community events and things like that, and kind of just bring some more life into it. And thankfully, we made it, and that location is still here today, and it's grown from, I think it was about 1,500 square feet. We've taken, additional space, and that center's completely been redeveloped and looks great and things. But yeah, it's scary,
And look at that. It was scary, but you did it scared.
Yeah. Terrified. Walk the little, oh my goodness, what are we doing? But, but calculated risks also,
right.
and take something too large, we specifically, we took a smaller spot, tried to negotiate as best as we could, went into second generation, spot, so that we weren't paying for new construction and things like that. So tried to do it as safely as possible, but it's always scary,
Yeah,
and
that's business.
exactly.
Well, good for you. One of the most popular questions I get from founders that are starting out is, "Oh, how am I going to find a franchisee? Who's going to buy a franchise from me? Where do I find them?" So where did you get your first half dozen franchisees?
Most of them were from the Vegas, actually all of them were from the Vegas market. So customers or friends of customers, or, mainly customers and friends of customers. Pretty much all of that was the initial. We didn't really do much advertising, partly because, ads, and every franchise broker I talked to was like, you got to blast, franchise opportunities all over the place, make sure you put it on your cups and put it on your containers and put it on your bags. And I was like, oh gosh, maybe I'm not set up for this business, because I just can't wear the hat that says franchise available. So, we did it basically more organically, and, still to this day, it's kind of like that too. I do need to really start looking at it a little bit differently. And now that we're in the DFW market, brand a little bit better as far as marketing to franchisees, but that's where we found them.
Well, and congratulations. Now you've broken out of Nevada now, right? Into Texas and Frisco, Texas. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, let's get back to Vegas for a second here. You got all these awards. Tell us what Rachel's Kitchen offers. Like, what are some of the most popular menu items, and why did they give you all these awards?
I think they like us.
What do they like? Tell us what some of the awards are, and what are some of the most popular menu items?
So we're fast casual. We call ourselves fresh casual because everything's, made fresh in-house and made to order. So the awards, like there's different categories for Best of Las Vegas, and they do change their categories every
Hmm.
year. They've got ones that are always kind of there, but we've won things from best juices, best smoothies, best salads, best power lunch, best Henderson location or restaurant, best downtown Las Vegas restaurant, best catering. So we're really known for like our salads and our sandwiches and our juices and our smoothies, but we do have pasta on our menu that people absolutely love when they realize, that that's on the menu as well. We offer great catering, not like a catering that you do at your home, but just like kind of a drop-off catering
Hmm.
for business lunches and events and baby showers and whatnot. And we're pretty, our brand is pretty well known in Vegas. So we're consistent. That's the one thing that we try to push for is that all the
Aha.
locations is consistent. And we take care of our guests as best as we can. We value them. We understand that, there's a lot of competition, like you said, in Las Vegas, and we really try to value our guests as much as possible and, give back to the community as much as possible. I'm very uh, much a advocate for that. We give to fundraisers all the time, to charities, anything that really 99% of the things that are presented to us, we give something, whether it's a gift card or, a tray or whatever, as long as
Mhm.
it's something that's legitimate. Because I just believe in doing that, and I think people see that. And when the locals think Rachel's Kitchen, I think most of them understand that and remember that.
That's sweet. One of the challenges I think about in franchising, specifically in the food services, is that consistency is much harder to achieve, or I should say, it's more easily exposed when you don't have that consistency from one franchise
Mhm.
to another versus other sectors. Nobody's going to really notice in home services because you're probably only going to go to use one home services company, for example,
Yeah.
once in your area. But whereas you've got, a half dozen locations throughout Vegas, how do you, have you figured out how to ensure consistency from one location to the other?
It's tough. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's a walk in the park because it's not, and we're constantly, striving for that. But we, our specs are very particular,
Hmm.
so that's one way that we can ensure that everybody's buying the same product. We work with the same vendors across the brand and same specs. And if something is subbed, it's always approved by the corporate office before it goes out, so people aren't making their own decisions. So today this, cheese is out, so we're going to swap it for this cheese. It's all done by us. And we've got, second sub, third sub. And generally what happens if it's out for one location, it's out for all the locations. So we do that. We have our recipes, kind of down to amount of salt and pepper that goes into them. We have little videos for all of our recipes. We've got quizzes, we've got, tests, we've got you name it, we have it, and we've redone them,
Hmm.
every time we'll see something. I mean, fortunately not, recently, but in the beginning, the first few years, we're like, oh, well, we're looking at it like this. And then we go into a location and somebody's understood this differently. And we're thinking, how could you possibly understand what, ABC says, but they
Right.
did.
Sure.
So let's revise it and let's change it. So that's really been a huge part of what I do with my corporate team is just to make sure that we've got consistency across the brand.
Yeah, opening a new business is overwhelming for people. I would imagine many of your franchise owners, I know mine, were first-time business owners. So you're just hit with an
Mhm.
enormous amount of a learning curve, and
Yes.
it's very easy for somebody to skip over something, and or if they don't pick up on something, they improvise, right? They figure it out. They do they do
I think is right.
what they
Yeah.
think is right. That's it. Can you elaborate a little bit on the training and support that you guys offer?
Sure. So we have a full training. We do have our corporate office and our commissary out here in Vegas, but for the new location, like for the Frisco, I decided that it would be better to have my team go out there. Like our corporate documents say, they should come to Vegas and get trained. I think it's like 5 days, on the job training type thing, and then 5 days of like classroom training. So, you know, they could come out here to Vegas for a couple of weeks, bring their management team and whatnot over here. But I decided, this is important for everybody. So we're just going to go out there with them and hold their hand through the thing. So we were there, towards the end of construction. We were there when the first deliveries were coming in. We were basically opening the store for them, with them, and had a team that stayed there with them for several days after. And then everybody just kept going back and going back. And we're still going back, because it's still kind of soft open for us. But my philosophy is always like, I want you to be successful, because if you're successful, I'm successful. So we're really in this together. So let's all work together. And, ultimately that's our goal. I know some franchisors are like, well, I told you to get 3 days of training, and you got 3 days of training and you didn't learn it. So now I'm going to hit you with a bill because I'm going to charge you X amount to, retrain your management team, or, do this and that. That's not what I'm about, so more the long-term relationship, and, how can we all be successful together, and how can we make this happen? So
of course, it's probably part of the draw why someone would want to be a franchise owner with you, because they're partnering up with you. You're small. It's still a very intimate environment, especially, 6 out of the 7 franchise locations are in Nevada. So you feel like you're part of a family still.
Yep, exactly.
What about your franchise owner? So who are they? Like, who is your ideal franchise owner? What does that look like?
There's different ones, and they're all different. I've got the, husband and wife that work there with their families. I've got the semi-retired corporate restaurant owner who had, his life was corporate restaurants, and decided he wanted to go do his own, and does his own now kind of on a part-time basis, and has a team that runs his stores for him. I've got the hospitality type expert that was never in the actual food, but always knew the hospitality side and did a great job of building a team together for himself. So really they're different. I would say for future growth, my ideal is more of a multi-unit restaurant operator.
Okay.
Because they have usually, they have the experience, and they have a seasoned team, which makes it a lot easier. Because I think a lot of the difficult part of the initial months of opening anything is really getting your team together.
Right.
So when you're learning and your team's learning and you're in a new environment, you've got so many different obstacles. So
sure. That's one of the big challenges I found in franchising starting out myself, is that the people who were buying franchises from me in the beginning, it was very much a mom and pop franchise owner. And then it was almost like as we grew, maybe you could say the business legitimized itself a little bit and got more sophisticated, but we did get a much more sophisticated franchise owner. Not some, and I don't mean somebody who's just like, I'm investing in businesses and this is part of my multi-unit brand strategy, but it was folks that did have a vast array of not franchise, but just business experience in all different industry. But it almost like it helped legitimize our business by having people from all different walks of life. Not to mention, I think one of the greatest advantages of franchising, if I can sell franchising for a moment here, is that I could never have afforded these people to be employees, that I was gaining their experience and they were bringing something to the table. Like our team was so much stronger because of their knowledge, of their expertise in all different sectors of the business. And I can kind of see how Rachel's Kitchen is going to evolve. Of course, you have this, if you're going to go multi-unit franchise, it's going to create a whole new set of expectations that you're going to have, because obviously the faster we grow, the faster we can, crash the car. But but if you're finding this more sophisticated business investor who, if you have the guardrails in place, it can be a great strategy for you to go faster. And well, now we're in Texas, right? So that's huge. It's going to now open up doors for you much faster, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly, the strategy and sort of how it's been. And, it's been a very slow, steady kind of growth. And part of it's been, just because of my own personal life as well. I mean, my 2 kids are now older.
Debbie, I got a question for you. Does your son wonder when you're going to start a brand with his name?
He does. He's got a menu item. So his name's Ryan. He's got Ryan's Pesto Pasta, and it does fantastic. So that's great. And, it's always a joke, but the franchise company is named after him. So,
Oh, that's
I'm like, okay,
great.
you don't have the fame out there, babe, but you actually really own this company, so
It's
that's your,
I love it. It's not about the fame.
yeah.
It's about the success. It's really about the fulfillment. Oh, that's great. What a great idea. That was an
Yeah,
awesome,
thank you.
awesome
So I
idea right
try
there.
try to balance him out a little bit, although, he's still like, yeah, that's great, but my sister's name's everywhere.
Literally everywhere. Yeah. Debbie, what about the footprint? I think you mentioned 1,400 square feet at one point. What's the
So
typical footprint of a Rachel's
yeah,
Kitchen?
so typically we're looking anywhere between, 1,700 and 2,000 is our sweet spot with a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of patio. Some of our locations are a little bit bigger than that out here in Vegas, and we're really trying our newer locations to be smaller. So the last location we opened in Vegas is 1,800 square feet. The one we just opened in Frisco is 1,850. So that's really where we want to be.
Okay. And like when you decide that you're going to evaluate, you're going to select a new territory to expand to, like I said, you just reached out, you just opened in Frisco, Texas. What are the ways that you evaluate new territories to expand to, especially now that you've expanded beyond Nevada?
So we really look for, just the right mix, because we're very lunch heavy. We look for a place that has the residential, but also has commercial business because we have, you know, throughout Monday through Friday, throughout the week, probably 60% of our business is lunch. So we need something that has, just very densely populated with offices or hospitals or, things like that, where there's constant action and people coming through, where we could do deliveries and catering and whatnot, but yet that there's enough residential so that Saturdays and Sundays, it's not a ghost town. So that's really what we look for. And just, everybody says location, 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 but that's really what it's about.
Yeah. Are there certain markets though that you're most excited about opening? What or regions of the country?
We're trying to stick, kind of to the Southwest right now, just because of it, just brand awareness. Dallas, it's huge, so that's why we chose DFW because there's so many different pockets in DFW where we can open Rachel's Kitchens and they would not, compete against one another.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas itself, I think I could probably put 6 to 10 locations and they wouldn't compete. So there's
Right.
just a lot.
Do you have any aspirations of opening more company-owned locations, or are we just going to stick with the two and open the rest via franchise?
Possibly. I'm always open to anything. We'll see.
Okay. Long term, though, what's the vision for the company? You want to take the world by storm? You want to open across the world or across the country, or what's the big picture for the company?
Really just to continue to grow, whether that's, one or two locations every few months or whether it's 5 to 10, depending on the right partners, but just to continue to grow.
Slow and steady and the right partner. It
Yeah,
sounds like that's the
exactly.
philosophy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, with the name of the company, or I should say the name of the franchise being your daughter and the name of the franchise company being your son, I assume this is a legacy business and you plan on doing this for life.
Well, my kids aren't getting younger, so I'm hoping that, as they're in college, my daughter's in college and my son's a senior in high school. So I'm like, all right, hurry up, go through college, study business, realize that this is what you want to do with your life and come and help your mom.
Aw.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens over there. But
What about with people that are interested in becoming a franchisee? Is there advice that you give them when they're doing their due diligence? Because you've been very, very careful in awarding franchises to people. Clearly, you haven't been just giving a franchise to everybody that's inquired. So I imagine you make them jump through some hoops. What's
yeah, for me, it's really about the relationship and really about the people. Like I said, I mean, it really, especially because we're smaller, it's like a marriage. I mean, you're with these people, at least initially, like every single day, you're calling them, texting them, my team and I, we were out in Frisco ourselves. I mean, we basically, took over a hotel and sat and were there for days and days and days on end. So it's about the relationship with that person. You want to make sure that the person that you're the person or people or groups that you're working with, they have the same outcome in life and they're looking for the same types of things. So yes, you could sell a franchise to anybody. We could have sold multiple franchises that maybe didn't even open, if that's what we wanted to do. But
Sure.
we're really looking for like the right partners and people that believe in the brand. It's very important for me that they believe in the band, that they believe in us, that they do want to give back to their communities, that they do want to be a part of those communities and not just I'm here to, open a business and make as much money as I possibly can. At the end of the day, it is about money, but it's also about the way that you do that. And, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. You've got integrity. You want to make sure you're bringing on the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie, if someone was interested in learning more about Rachel's Kitchen, where do they go?
rachelskitchen.com, or, there's a link to the franchise website on there, or we have our own franchise website, franchise.rachelskitchen.com.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Debbie, I finish every podcast episode with the franchise tip jar because the community is so generous. So maybe, is there a piece of advice that you'd give somebody if they were an entrepreneur that wanted to franchise their concept before they jumped in and did it? What would you tell them?
Say just learn as much as you can, talk to different franchisors, talk to different franchisees, and just embrace everything and learn from it. It's a different business than whatever business you're in. I was in the restaurant business. Now I'm in the franchising business as well. And it's two completely different hats.
And that's the difference. That's great advice. That is the difference between a franchisor that makes it and survives and those that don't. Good for you. I'm glad you got that. And thank you so much for giving that tip. Thanks for being
so much.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank
you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.